CrossFit is dying, or at least that seems to be the sentiment among some of the community around CrossFit. The number of searches on Google has gone down consistently since peaking in July 2013. I think there are a lot of reasons for this downturn and some potential solutions. There are two easy sides of this: the CrossFit Games, aka competitive CrossFit, and the affiliate side, which is each individual gym all over the world that operate independently, and 99% of these affiliates have nothing to do with the CrossFit Games. Let's start with the CrossFit Games side of this. The search term CrossFit Games had a little later peak than just the term CrossFit. The CrossFit Games peaked around 2016. Back around the peak, there was a lot of media around the games. There was road to the games, behind the scenes, and a lot of storytelling around individual athletes. Now there seems to be little to almost none of this type of storytelling. If you look at the CrossFit Games YouTube and compare what they are posting now to what they were posting during these peak years, you would see how it would have been easy for someone to get invested in a storyline or a personality like Rich Froning, Josh Bridges, Dan Bailey, etc. There were lots of videos about them, their personalities, personal lives, and day-to-day training. For example, Justin Medieros won the games in 2021 and 2022, and I know almost nothing about him aside from 1 or 2 videos I watched on his YouTube channel, which has 49,000 subscribers. CrossFit Games, from what I have seen, have not posted much about him, his origins, personality, or day-to-day training. Yes, he has his own YouTube, but in order to follow each of these athletes individually, people need to become invested at first, and I think this is the job of the CrossFit Games. Then there is Jeff Addler, who won the CrossFit Games last year in 2023. He is the current reigning CrossFit Games champion, and he has 1.5 thousand subscribers. And to be honest, I didn't even know he had a YouTube until I looked it up right now. Again, the CrossFit Games have done nothing to highlight him as a person or an athlete. I know nothing about Jeff Addler. In 2014, just about anyone in CrossFit could have told you where Rich Froning is from, who his friends were, what affiliate he trains at, and the things he's been practicing the most. There were things we could empathize with and become invested in watching and supporting him.
My name is Rich Froning. I'm from Cookeville, Tennessee, and I train at CrossFit Mayhem.
Now the CrossFit Games has not posted anything personal about their champions. We don't get to see their personalities or storylines develop. At this point, they post highlights and videos made 4+ years ago. I had never heard of F1 racing until they had the documentary on Netflix. Now some of my friends are so invested in these storylines and people, and they love watching and keeping up with F1. I recently went out to dinner with a friend, and there were TVs playing the F1 races. He was naming drivers, talking about who he likes and dislikes, and who he wanted to win the race. I, a dedicated CrossFit lover, can't even do this with the CrossFit Games athletes today, but F1 is able to have this type of growth and following even without the product behind it like the CrossFit Games does with the open affiliates and certifications. If the CrossFit Games could even come close to this same level of storytelling and success that this documentary had on Netflix, CrossFit would absolutely explode. Media is essential in this age for the development of a sport, and as for most of us, the CrossFit Games is just that. It's media and entertainment. In my opinion, CrossFit as a sport has some advantages over something like F1. You can actually see the people as they are competing, which adds kind of a human element to it. On top of this, the workouts or events are different every year. One of my favorite things every year is workout releases. If the storytelling and media around these workout releases were better, these could be a huge part of the media around the games. Another advantage CrossFit has over something like F1 is that CrossFit fans can participate in the CrossFit Games season. Again, all of this just leads back to the lack of media creation. I mean, for goodness sake, there is a marble racing YouTube channel with more views and subscribers than the CrossFit Games has. Now let's talk about the affiliate side of this decline. It seems there has been some loss of identity within CrossFit and the community. CrossFit in the early years was kind of a fringe thing. It was counterculture at its core and had its own niche identity that attracted a certain kind of person. CrossFit had its own language. CrossFit got into big lawsuits with Coca-Cola, NSCA, and more. CrossFit had a puking clown as the mascot. CrossFitters walk on their hands. CrossFitters have special shoes that we can run, lift, and climb ropes in, all in the same workout. CrossFit had its own heroes and villains. It developed a cult-like following for a reason. It changed lives and also had a very strong identity that resonated with a lot of people. Some of this culture feels like it has left in the past few years. With the departure of the original founder, Greg Glassman, the end of the media team, and now what seems to be sort of a shift in the CrossFit identity away from preaching over and over the CrossFit methodology, the CrossFit Journal, something that really helped me learn what CrossFit really is no longer on the front page of CrossFit.com like it used to be. But the methodology that is in the journal is really what makes CrossFit different from every other health and happiness gym. The journal is like the CrossFit scriptures. Now they have Monster, owned by Coca-Cola, as a sponsor for the CrossFit Games. Now the CrossFit Games are seen more of a sport than testing of the CrossFit methodology. CrossFit is losing its identity. Of course you're going to lose people along the way. CrossFit also started to contend with mock CrossFit gyms. At first, when CrossFit appeared on the scene, most gyms looked like this. CrossFit really helped the rise of the box type gym. At first, CrossFit affiliates were most of these box type gyms, but soon people started opening up unaffiliated gyms that looked and felt a lot like a CrossFit gym. To someone who's not familiar with CrossFit, these can look an awful lot like CrossFit, but in reality they're not. With CrossFit pushing the leaders in health and happiness, it's not helping, as these mock CrossFit gyms can deliver a product that looks an awful lot like CrossFit without the $4,500 a year cost of being an affiliate. These people at these gyms may be doing something that looks similar to CrossFit, but they're not involved with CrossFit at all and therefore not searching it up. In 2013, there weren't a lot of these yet. It was either CrossFit or this. One of the things affecting a potential dip in searches for CrossFit in general is a lack of influence from the CrossFit Games because of the things I talked about earlier. Obviously, there is some number of people who get into a CrossFit gym based solely on the CrossFit Games. A lot of my initial attraction to CrossFit was from watching the CrossFit Games. It got me interested. There were these crazy fit people doing these awesome things. The workouts were ever changing. There were great storylines, visually appealing events, and athletes I related to. It got me hooked on CrossFit, and from that, I got my 60-year-old parents into an affiliate. As much as some people in the community don't want to admit it, the CrossFit Games are something that get people into the affiliate. And it's not just people who are competitive. As the CrossFit Games have seen a dip in views in the last few years, that is less eyes and ears dipping into the CrossFit world at all. The last point I want to emphasize is that CrossFit as a search term is the definition of viral. The graph is quite literally exponential at first. Pretty much anything that's viral like this is bound to see some evening out eventually. There are a large number of people who heard about CrossFit for the first time right here, looked it up, and decided they weren't interested. I would say the more concerning thing about this graph is not the steep fall off after 2013, but rather the gradual decline in the last 3 to 4 years. With Greg Glassman getting pushed out of the company, the firing of the media staff, constant changes to the CrossFit Games season, and what feels like a loss in direction and firm standing in the original culture and preaching of the methodology, CrossFit is losing its identity. And without its identity, what is it?